Good morning. I am a little bit sick today, but I would like to get started on my UKCA testing video. Now, if you're a small business looking to get started with selling plushies or anything toy-like, so you may be a hobbyist looking to maybe sell a few bits here and there, or you might be doing what I'm doing and trying to start a full-scale small little business. For any of those things, I'm sure you've come across the term UKCA testing. Now, when I first came across it, I was quite confused and I didn't feel like I'd heard about it very much, but it is an absolute necessity for selling your toys on the UK market. So it used to be a different sort of testing used for toys, and after we left the EU, it's now UKCA. So to sell toys in England, Wales, any of the UK, it has to be UKCA, but if you want to sell further afield into Europe or anywhere like that, you need to look into more testing laws. So there is CE testing for EU products, which is very similar, but I have yet to conduct myself yet. So all of my plushies are only available in the UK, as I haven't carried out the testing procedures for them to be safe on international markets. Sorry that I'm quite ill. Now, you can do this in many different ways. You can get a company to test your plushies for you, or, as you probably don't have loads and loads of money to spend on your small business yet, because you're still in the startup phase, you can do it yourself. So there are lots of packs out there. I think the cheapest one I've seen is £50. I was not going to pay that when I started my small business, so I actually created my own little pack. It is in here somewhere. Ooh, there we go. I hope you can see that in my big massive folder. I created my own guide. I think I did about 35 hours of research. So I found out everything I possibly could. You are free to go and download that and use that. All I will say is it is not at all legal advice. I am not saying that that is how you get your toys 100% safe, as I've only researched what I've researched. There may be things out there that I don't know yet. I may not be fully up to date by the time, I don't know, 2-3 years down the line, it may be different. Hopefully I'll have updated it. But yeah, I do have a free guide that you are more than welcome to use. And then after you've tested your plushies, you have to create a declaration of conformity. So again, it's similar to the packs that you test plushies with. You can buy them from accredited organisations, or you can create them yourself. So it's very similar to a risk assessment that you would use in any work environment. So it basically states, yes, you believe your plushies are, to the best of your knowledge, completely compliant with everything, and they have the certificates to back it up, you have the proof to back it up, and any documentation you need is all there with it. If you hear pages flicking, I have some notes here, so I remember to say everything that is relevant and that you guys will need to know. So there are 3 different parts of the plushie integrity sort of thing that you'll be testing. So it'll be mechanical and physical properties. So that'll be all parts of the plushie that are sewn on, so like arms, legs. Can they withstand a certain weight so that a child can pull it, it won't break and become a choking hazard? Is it a choking hazard? How big is the plushie? Can it fit through a toilet paper tube? It is a general rule of thumb, if it can fit through a toilet paper tube, it can be a choking risk. Also chemical properties, so are there any restricted chemicals that we can't have in toys in the UK in the materials that you're using? There is also hygiene, so it's not necessarily on there specifically, but toys in the UK have to be suitable from birth, and for them to be suitable from birth, they need to be able to be cleaned regularly so they don't harbour bacteria for children, and obviously babies are sick all the time. If a baby throws up on it, can it easily be cleaned and dried and actually be clean? And finally, there is something else, the flammability test. Now, it's a hard test to do to start with. I've come to find it's my favourite test to do, but you have to set your plushie on fire. So that is to see if, for any reason, the plushie catches fire and a child is holding it, do they have enough time to drop it so that they don't get a burn and they don't get harmed by this plushie. It was very sad setting my first plushie alight, and it was sort of disappointing because I don't know, I kind of expected it to go up in flames, but all of the yarn I'm using is UKCA compliant, and all of it just sort of crisps up a little bit and gets a little bit stiff. So those are the tests that you'll do. And as I stated before, all toys in the UK have to be suitable from birth. So even if they aren't marketed towards very young children, if it's a soft toy especially, it has to be suitable from birth because it will have appeal to very young children. You need to make sure that your toy is safe for everybody, because even if you market it as if it's not a toy, it still has play appeal, and if anything has play appeal, it must be tested as if it is a toy. That is about it on sort of the general gist of what we're doing. I think next we will get into the actual testing. So I have a lovely little section in my folder full of my little pack. I accidentally printed the first page on photo paper, so it's very shiny. But the first thing that I would make sure you're using or doing before you start anything else is that you're using compliant materials. So that includes yarn, safety eyes, any other safety like attachments. I know you can get noses and mouths. They're very cute but also kind of creep me out, so I haven't used them yet. I also try to buy stuffing that is compliant. However, it's not a necessity, as it's inside the toy and shouldn't be coming out. It isn't necessary to have compliant stuffing, but I prefer to cover all bases, so everything that I use is, if possible, compliant. So I have a lovely little list here, and I will list it down below as well, so you guys can find exactly what you need. All of these things are completely compliant with the chemical testing, so that is what all of your materials have to be compliant with. And when they're compliant with chemical testing, it almost always means the flammability of the toy is, it won't catch on fire easily. Like, I've stood with a lighter underneath one of the bees I made for about 5 seconds and literally nothing happens. So it means they're very, very safe. I'm trying to think of anything else you might need to know about these materials, other than the fact that you really need them. Oh, of course. I'm so sorry. I'm not quite used to making videos yet, so I don't feel overly prepared. But for each material you use, you must then have a certificate stating that it is EN 71-3 compliant. So I don't know if I'm holding it in the right frame, but you can see I've got links. Obviously it doesn't work on paper, but on the online guide there are links to all of the websites, and on the websites there are certificates proving its compliance. I was going to say compliability. Proving its compliance. Now you can email companies and have the compliant forms sent to you. So I'm trying to think of something I've used where I've done that. I use a yarn that's called like Sadir yarn, and it's this really cute plushy yarn, and it comes in these tiny little skeins that are just enough for me to make a mini squid. Great. But they didn't have a compliance form readily available on the website, so I emailed them and it turns out they are compliant. It just isn't on the website for all to see. I suppose because it takes up space when not everybody is looking to sell their products. A lot of people do just buy yarn to make stuff for themselves, friends and family, all sorts like that. So the first part is buying compliant supplies, and that is probably the most important, because if you don't buy compliant supplies but do all the other testing, you still won't necessarily know it's safe. Unless you pay a lab to carry out the chemical testing for you, you won't be able to sell them in the UK. So if the chemical tests are not done, you can't sell them. Great, so now you know your toys are all chemically safe, as they should be, with all of the correct documentation to back it up. So it'll be paperwork from the websites of the company who supply the product. It is time for the mechanical and requisite strength testing. Requisite strength? Physical strength. There is a requisite strength in one of the requirements. So for this, you need to have your plushie already made. I'm afraid testing your plushies does mean you have to sacrifice one little plushie for every effort. I think I'm going to start making little crochet plasters to stick over the parts of the plushie that get damaged. Usually it's fire during the testing, so I can still sell them, and they can be a cute little like limited edition thing. Anyway, that's besides the point. The mechanical and physical strength testing, that is a big long list. So I've put what is on the government website in black writing, and then my own idea like underneath in a different colour. I decided to go with the rainbow because I love the rainbow. So I'll walk you through what each of these points are, and then how I demonstrate through my testing that it is all okay. And when I say demonstrate through testing, I mean every test I do, I record, I upload to my computer. I also get worried about my computer suddenly crashing, having a bug, or like for some reason I can't access them anymore. So I also do keep a paper copy of screenshots of all of the tests as well, just in case. So there is always proof of every test you've done to ensure it is compliant, because if you're called upon to prove your compliance, that is what you'll need to present. So the first part is ensuring that they can withstand the stresses of day-to-day play. So to do this, what have I done? God, it's been a long time since I've written this and I feel quite foggy today. Essentially, I use an S-hook and then another S-hook. I have loads of weights from my gym anyway, and I fill a bag with 7.5 kilograms, have the plushie on an S-hook, holding the S-hook or hang it on a door, whatever's easier, and then slowly increase the weight. So I slowly let go of the weight and then ensure the plushie can withstand it. So you'll do this anywhere there is seams. So on my little bees, for example, I do it on each of the wings. I'll grab a plushie in a moment and show you guys actually where I've tested it. For example, I did a rat as well. So as each of the rat's legs, his tail, his nose, anything that could come loose, you test it can withstand 7.5 kilograms. Now, after that, you need to make sure there are no sharp edges, protrusions, fastenings, anything that can cause physical injury. So for my plushies, I feel like the only thing that could cause injury would be the safety eyes, because they're kind of hard. So I demonstrated hitting it against my bare arm and then like showing my arm afterwards. My arm's all okay. It's not bruised at all. No marks to speak of. It's great. And they also cannot pose a strangulation risk or a choking hazard. So I think I've written it down. I must have written it down. I did. Oh, look at me go, being proactive. I did so much research for this. If something is longer than 22 centimetres and it's hanging free from a project, it is considered a strangulation risk. So you need to measure it and be sure that anything hanging off of a project is not longer than 22 centimetres. I usually go for more like, if I'm making something really long, I would just avoid it. But I don't think anything I've made is longer than that anyway, or has anything hanging off it longer than that. But for example, with my rat, I sewed his tail around him like it's hugging him, just to be certain, because it can't be a strangulation risk when it is fully attached and cannot come off. So that is a hanging cord, like a free hanging cord. There are also looped cords. So if it is a looped cord, it can't be longer than 38 centimetres. It is all in my little guide here. So that is how you ensure it's not a strangulation risk. I then took photos and videos of the long parts next to a tape measure, showing that it is the correct length. As well as this asphyxiation risk, I used a toilet paper tube and I also measured everything. So I took photos and videos of the tube being measured around like the plushie I'm measuring, and then like showing me trying to stuff it into a toilet paper tube, and it won't go, so it can't be a strangulation risk. It's great. So if a toy can be like really shoved in and like it does go in, it still could, not strangulation risk. I just caught on to what I said earlier. Asphyxiation risk. It could still be an asphyxiation risk even if you can like shove it in and it takes a bit of effort. So it has to be big enough to not do that. Oh, sorry guys. I think there's not too much left for that actually. Now, yeah, there's lots of different things about asphyxiation and strangulation in separate points, but it is all basically covered by the same process. Yeah, so all packaging must also follow the same guidelines. It can't present a strangulation or asphyxiation risk. So that's especially for things like if you put it in a plastic packaging, that could really be an issue. If you decided to add certain elements of packaging, like loads of loose stuff, loose like paper. I just swallowed loads of dust, so sorry. That could also be an issue. But more or less, 3 things to follow. It's hanging weight and like modelling, playing with it. So modelling, playing, I just chucked it all over the place. pulled it, squished it, twisted it, everything like that. Asphyxiation and strangulation risks, as well as packaging. I think I've summed that up more or less okay. However, I'm sure I'll go back and edit this soon and not know what on earth I was on about, because I feel rather spacey. There's not too much to say about flammability, other than it must fulfill one or more of the things I'm about to say. So it must not burn if directly exposed to flame. It will burn, it is yarn, it is fabric, but they are not readily flammable, so the flame goes out as soon as the fire disappears, which I have found happens with a lot of my plushies, especially James C. Brett yarn. If I hold it there and take it away, often there's no mark at all. If they do ignite, they burn slowly and present a low rate of spread of the flame. So essentially that means it burns slowly enough a child could let go of it. So I held my plushies, I didn't really let go of them at all. I didn't have to let go of them at all for any of the yarns I've used. And irrespective of the toy's chemical composition, they're designed so to delay combustion. So the chemicals in them make an effort to delay fire, which from what I've seen with my plushies, they've done a great job of that, to be honest. Like, not a single one of my plushies, oh sorry, have I had to drop. I've not had to do anything with them. They just sort of get a bit charred. They don't even really catch fire, they sort of just go a bit like charcoal-y and that's about it. Finally, we have hygiene. So toys need to be designed so they meet hygiene standards to avoid risk of infection, disease, sickness, anything. Basically, all that means is you can wash the toy and it withstand washing. So what I do is I often test a load of plushies all at once, chuck them all into the washing machine together, and then if they come out great, that's fantastic. So after they have been washed, I do recommend you then have to do the testing again. So basically you wash it and repeat the process so you can prove it can be washed and still maintain the same level of safety as it did before washing. So you do the mechanical test again, you do the flammability test again, you make sure it hasn't changed its shape so suddenly it's really like flat and can suddenly be asphyxiation risk, because that could be a possibility. If it's not stuffed enough, it might make it really flat and easily chokeable. I think that is about it. I do wash things a few times, so obviously wash it once, check it's still okay. After a third wash, I often will then check it again. However, that's not necessary, or at least as far as I'm aware, that isn't necessary. That's just something I like to do. I like to make sure it can go through quite a few washes, as it would if it was a child's, and still hold up all okay. And that is about it. I do have down here about chemical testing. However, if you've got the correct materials or compliant materials, you don't need to carry out your own chemical testing. The chemical testing is already done for you, and we've taken care of that all to start with, which is fantastic. So the next thing we need to speak about is the declaration of conformity. So after you've done all your testing, you're not done. You still have to do some more work. So you can buy declarations of conformity, much like you can buy plushie packs online to do testing with, but it is, as I said earlier, basically a risk assessment. It's just confirming it meets all the requirements and it's all safe. So you can, I have got a list of everything you need to include, which is just there for you. If you wanted to make your own, you're more than welcome to. If you wanted, you can buy a template, that's fantastic as well. I will say Hobbycraft have a fantastic template that I've used. It is for CE testing, but I then basically made it my own. Or I have got linked underneath a template that I made that has all the correct information on it, everything you could need, and that's all good to go. So that is your declaration of conformity done. The last part is labelling. So I've seen a lot of people unaware that labelling is a part of the actual legalities of selling a plushie, but you do need to have a label. Here are my labels, or a very big blown up version, and it includes care information as well as the UKCA tested symbol so that we know they are safe, along with links to my socials and my logo. I'll also print it out so the fares I can write a price on, all that jazz. I've had a few questions about how I do my labels, and I do it with my tiny little sticker printer. I actually got this for journaling, and I do have a tiny little pocket journal, which I use it for, but it works really well. Currently my business is so small, I only need to print labels when I ship something. So I print out labels on here, stick it to a bit of card, cut them out, and I've got some lovely little like cutters that are in the shape of like teddy bears, all sorts. Cut them out and attach them. You do have to have on there, if they are labels that are detachable, they have to say, please keep this for future reference, so that they know if they throw it away, they shouldn't have done. But it tells you everything you need to know, tells you it's safe, they need to keep it. And that is more or less it, I think. Yeah. Everything that is left is just all my references. There we go. You are all ready to start selling. Any questions, do ask me. I have a lot of questions on my TikTok as well. So I am planning on making a little series of videos on there about my most commonly asked questions. And I plan on making a big long YouTube video on here about all the questions I get about UKCA testing, because a lot of people aren't sure when they have to test, why, what they can get away with not testing. And I'll show you quickly on here my little squid, this little bucket of things I've been crocheting at the moment. I would test every single one of his legs. I would test here for mechanical properties. I would test with weight, all the legs, this little part where it joins, and also just generally the body to make sure it withstands the pressure, along with the eyes, because those are all the parts that could come loose, possibly. So yeah. And I also kind of wanted to just show you this little squid. I've also made a baby octopus for the first time. I've gotten really into making sea creatures. Tiny whale. And this might be my favourite. A little starfish. So yeah, if you have any questions, ask me. Please follow down below. I will link everything you could possibly need. So I'll link my free UKCA testing stuff down below, along with all the products I tend to use. And I'll link my social medias. Please give me a follow, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.